Southbound just before junction 7 north of Harlow. Emergency repair works are underway after a van caught fire this morning. On the Essex stretch of the M25, the two inside lanes of 4 are closed anti-clockwise just after the M11 interchange for emergency repair works. And finally, on the M5 in Devon, the northbound exit is closed at junction 29 at Exeter, where a car's broken down. That's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
It's our festive treat to you. Your chance to win an incredible £50,000 in tax-free cash. Our biggest ever Great British giveaway. What would you spend £50,000 on in the coming year? Spectacular holidays, a brand new car, home improvements? Or maybe you'd just like to save it for a special occasion? For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
A very, very good evening to you. It's 7 p.m. and I'm Martin Daubney, standing in for the big man, Nigel Farage. On tonight's Farage show, the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, has tonight announced that Syrians seeking asylum in Britain will have their claims halted over fears that the unrest could spark fresh migration surge. I'll be speaking to a Labour MP in the studio about this topic shortly. And police chiefs have warned that the Home Secretary that they will be forced to make major staffing cuts because of a £300 million shortfall in funding settlement. Or is it another financial black hole? And this, of course, comes just a week after the Prime Minister announced plans to hire 13,000 additional coppers. Now, thousands might get the boot. And a victim from the Rotherham sex abuse scandal reveals how she's been let down by police again after they lost vital evidence in her case. It's the GB News exclusive from Charlie Peters, and all that to come. But first, here's your headlines, and it's Sophia Wensler.
Martin, thank you. Good evening. It's just gone 7 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Prime Minister has said Britain and its allies must be intensely focused on the transition to a new regime in Syria amid fears of a resurgence of Islamic State. It comes as the UK has paused all Syrian asylum claims. It follows France, Germany and Austria saying they would pause decisions on asylum requests from Syrian citizens until the political situation in the Middle East and country became clearer. Speaking moments ago, Home Secretary Yvette Cooper confirmed the UK would be assessing the situation.
Know that the situation in Syria is moving extremely fast after the fall of the Assad regime. We have seen some people returning to Syria, but we also have a very fast-moving situation that we need to closely monitor. And that is why, like Germany, like France and like other countries, we have paused asylum decisions on cases from Syria while the Home Office reviews and monitors the current situation.
Meanwhile, Sir Keir Starmer is facing criticism for putting efforts to kickstart economic growth above human rights concerns as he meets Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. Downing Street said the economy was Sir Keir's #1 priority, but insists he would still raise concerns about the Saudi government's human rights record. Campaigners are urging the Prime Minister to speak out on the cases of child defendants facing the death penalty and the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi. Some breaking news coming to us from New York. The US media is reporting that a man is being questioned in connection with the fatal shooting of US healthcare CEO in what's being described as a targeted assassination. 26-year-old Luigi Mangione is being detained over the fatal shooting of United Healthcare Chief Executive Brian Thompson. Speaking moments ago, the New York City Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, gave an update on the situation.
Earlier this morning in Altoona, Pennsylvania, members of the Altoona Police Department arrested Luigi Mangione, a 26-year-old male, on firearms charges. At this time, he is believed to be our person of interest in the brazen targeted murder of Brian Thompson, CEO of United Healthcare, last Wednesday in Midtown Manhattan. The suspect was in a McDonald's and was recognized by an employee who then called local police. Responding officers questioned the suspect, who was acting suspiciously and was carrying multiple fraudulent IDs as well as a U.S. passport.
And in other news, Edinburgh City Council leader Cammy Day has resigned from his post following reports he sent Ukrainian refugees messages asking about their sexual preferences. The Labour politician had already been suspended by his party as police investigate a complaint against him of inappropriate behaviour. The Sunday Mail reported he sent unsolicited messages to Ukrainian refugees who said they felt unable to rebuff him. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Martin.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Thank you, Sophia. Now let's get cracking. And in a stunning turn of events, Bashar al-Assad's iron grip on Syria has finally been shattered. Over the weekend, rebels stormed Damascus, ousting the dictator in just 11 days after a 24-year rule of fear. Joy swept through Syrian communities in Britain as exiled refugees celebrated the rebels' victory. As you can see, pictures on your screen now, Trafalgar Square that was. And this afternoon, the UK joined Germany, France, Austria and several Nordic countries by announcing that they would freeze all pending asylum requests from Syrians. And here is the Home Secretary, Yvette Cooper, speaking earlier.
Know that the situation in Syria is moving extremely fast after the fall of the Assad regime. We have seen some people returning to Syria, but we also have a very fast-moving situation that we need to closely monitor. And that is why, like Germany, like France and like other countries, we have paused asylum decisions on cases from Syria while the Home Office reviews and monitors the current situation.
No, but pausing asylum processes for now at least. And while the UK and other governments said that they were watching this fast-moving developments in the war-ravaged nation, Vienna has gone a step further, signalling it would soon be deporting refugees back to Syria. Now, just to remember, the UK is currently home to around 30,000 Syrian refugees, many of whom could now potentially also return home. So, should the UK be taking similar action? Well, who could be better to discuss this momentous event than Peter Ford, the former British ambassador to Syria. Peter, thank you very much for joining me on the show this evening. So, it was only a matter of time, was it not? Britain had to follow suit with Germany, Austria, France and Nordic countries shutting down their borders. That would have only left one route for any potential fleeing refugees. That route would have led all the way to Calais, and then that route would have come to Britain. So closing our borders was the right thing to do.
It's the right thing to do with regard to the jihadi sympathizers who have until now constituted almost all of the refugees in this country. Because people fled Syria. Why? Because they had been sympathizing with the opposition to Assad. That's why all these people are here. Now they've got their way. Assad, with our help, has been removed. They have no excuse to be in this country anymore, and they should be actively encouraged to leave. I think the Germans are even offering modest amounts of money, but one way or another, they should be encouraged to leave. There is no further justification for their being here. But secondly, we have to think about new refugees, and the new refugees are likely to be people terrified of the new jihadi rulers in Damascus, and they're likely to be, many of them, Christians. I wouldn't expect large numbers because they will go mainly to next door Lebanon, but there may be a number of Syrian Christians. And it would be ironic that we pulled up the drawbridge for Christians, but we'd left it down for Muslims earlier.
But Peter Ford, the issue with that, and clearly this has influenced the thinking of liberal countries, very historically open borders. Germany, well over 1 million Syrian refugees fled into Germany during the previous conflict of the Assad regime. The problem with allowing one set of people in is that everyone will simply lie that that's what they are. We know full well that people pretend to be different things to get access to a country. They throw their documentation in the channel. We'd have no idea who any of these people were. And let's face it, some of them could equally be fleeing jihadists who support Assad.
Yes, that's absolutely right. Many of the Syrians who have come here, they've been one of two categories. Either they have been sympathizers with the jihadis and therefore they got into the crosshairs of the Assad government, or they've been chancers, economic refugees pretending to be fleeing from Assad. All these people should be swept out, without a doubt. There is no conceivable reason why they should continue to be here, where they have been, many of them, trying to engineer this outcome to get their jihadi patrons into power. Well, they've succeeded. And so they should be sent back.
Peter, that brings me on to my next point. So the law is quite clear. An asylum claim is a 5-year entitlement. At the end of that period, you can apply for a permanent right to remain in Britain. But if the situations change, which they clearly have, it's no longer a war zone, it's no longer with Assad in charge, then the right to remain could be queried. And as you're saying, they are talking about doing that in other countries. Are you then advocating for the notion, perhaps, of repatriations, deportations, Rwanda-style flights, maybe with a sweetener of €1,000? That's what the Germans are saying to any asylum seekers in the country. The country is now safe back in Syria. Off you go.
Well, the law is the law, and if under British law, once you're in, you get 5 years guaranteed. Well, that's the law. But these people should be. We should first of all use encouragement, advocacy, nudging, of which the government is so fond in other fields. They should be nudged to leave. This should not be made such a welcoming environment for them anymore. And some of their the people that they've been tied with turn out to be terrorists. Therefore, the sooner we get shot of them, the better. But I think the Germans are on the right track. I think they're offering something like €1,000 to get people off their backs. The problem is much worse for the Germans, of course, the numbers, but we should be following suit.
OK, superb stuff. Thanks very much for joining us tonight on Farage. And that's Peter Ford, the former British ambassador to Syria. Peter, thank you very much for joining me on the show this evening. Well, earlier on today, we heard from Yvette Cooper confirming that the government would be suspending asylum claims from Syrians. Unfortunately, it seems that no one told the Foreign Secretary, David Lammy. And here is what Mr Lammy had to say in the Commons a full 15 minutes after the government had announced their decision to the world.
The government looked to follow the example of European nations like Germany, who have suspended asylum applications.
That has not been put to me in the last few hours. The issue that's been put to me is the humanitarian need in country. The consensus of this House and the significant funds that we have supported Syria with should reassure people of our content to support people on the ground in the region.
Dear David Lammy didn't get the memo, did he? Somewhat embarrassing for a government already battling accusations of lacking a coherent communication strategy. And joining me now to discuss this is the government's response, is the Labour MP for Plymouth Moor View, Fred Thomas. Fred, welcome to the studio. Thanks for joining me. A little bit embarrassing there, Mr Lammy. Obviously, is saying it's not the government's position to close our borders a full 15 minutes after the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister both announced the same. He didn't get the memo, but do you stand by the position that it was the correct thing to do to close British borders to Syrians, refugees, and why?
Well, good evening, and we have decided to pause those asylum requests. I'm not sure closing the borders is the right terminology. As for David Lammy, he's in the chamber making the statement, and I know myself, when you're in there, very hard to be updated from the outside. These are a rapidly evolving situation. All government departments and the Prime Minister are monitoring this and working this at pace. So it's no surprise that our position and reaction is evolving in real time, and you can see that when you see David Lammy in the chamber and Yvette Cooper making announcements. So that's not surprising, but I do welcome the stance that we're taking and how quickly we're reacting.
Now, Fred, for right or for wrong, a lot of people might dig out pictures of Yvette Cooper from the past holding up a sign saying refugees welcome. And today it seems her hand was forced, really, by the fact Germany, France, Austria, Nordic nations, as I said there, to the ambassador, former ambassador Peter Ford. That would certainly mean that anyone fleeing would just be funneled towards Britain and inevitably cross into our country. To the other point of this idea of enforced repatriations, deporting people back to Syria from Britain, 17,000 of them, is that something you think you'd entertain?
Well, firstly, I'm not sure it's fair to describe Yvette Cooper's hand being forced. She's taken that decision herself. And we've got a very proud history in this country. Part of why I'm so patriotic and love the United Kingdom and serve this nation in the military is because we have a very proud tradition of giving asylum to those people who need it, who are from war-torn countries. We've done that during the Second World War. We've done that ever since then.
But Syria is no longer a war-torn country.
And that is exactly why.
The war is over. Is it time to pack them off now?
And that is exactly why we have today decided to pause all asylum applications from Syria, which is the right decision, and I stand by it. And I think your viewers will probably be aware that, given the change in leadership that's happened right now and is going on, as we speak in Syria, that pausing those applications is the right move.
So, Fred, it's one thing to pause fresh arrivals, but what about hastening the departure of those already here? As we just said, the law is the law. Their right to claim asylum exists so long as the country is war-torn. The war is over. It's time for them to go home.
Look, as we've just covered, this is a rapidly evolving situation. These are world events, extremely dynamic, and we are taking decisions one thing at a time.
This
so
is
I think you're slightly jumping
this is
to look at the next 5 years.
This is an easy win for Keir Starmer. 17,000 straight off your asylum list in one fell swoop.
Well, as we've decided today, we are pausing applications for asylum seekers from Syria. That's the decision we've come to. There's loads of work to be done, focusing on in Syria and wider. There's a wider conflict in the region. At the moment, focus is securing peace and stability, because what we know, Martin, no matter where it is in the world, is that where there is war and where there is strife, you will have asylum seekers. So if there are people here who would like us to have fewer asylum seekers, the way to achieve that is peace and stability around the world. That's the focus.
Thank you very much, Fred Thomas, MP there for Plymouth Moor View. Thank you very much for joining me in the studio. Always a delight. Thank you. Now, coming up next, just 1 week after the Prime Minister announced plans to hire 13,000 new coppers, we found out today that thousands of coppers may lose their jobs due to a funding shortfall. Another flip-flop.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Well, joining us now is Feng Shui expert Karina Sophia, who's going to share some of the best ways to ensure that our homes are still feeling calm as well as beautifully decorated this Christmas time.
One of the Feng Shui myths is that Feng Shui is all about moving furniture, and it isn't at all. Oh. Well, there is a little bit of that. It is about the flow of energy, but it starts outside, so there's lots of different forms of Feng Shui. So what we're going to talk about today is one form called Flying Stars Feng Shui, and there's another one that's classical, and form Feng Shui starts outside. If a 5-year-old would walk past your house and be happy, then the energy will.
I love that.
So if a 5-year-old would like to see more, would like to come in and would touch anything and not get hurt, then it's a good thing and the energy is feeling good and wants to come in as well.
What about the light colours? Does that matter? Does that come into play?
Yes, there are different colours. Depending on the direction, the compass direction of your home, there are good colours that support energy inside the home. So if your home is facing north, for instance, then it would be sitting south, and the inherent energy of the south is fire. So you want to have red or green, which is wood that fuels the fire, and that supports the inside of the home. Now, I just painted my door red a couple of days ago, and then I got this opportunity, so don't underestimate it. You want to decorate your tree with whatever you want to manifest. Whatever it is that you want to bring into your life. So this speaks for itself. It says joy.
Oh.
And it has a bell
I
on
like
it.
that idea. I can get on board with this. So you decorate your tree with things you'd like to see in your life.
Yes.
Okay.
So we're going to put some joy.
That would be nice.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubry. Now, police chiefs have warned Yvette Cooper that thousands of officers' jobs will have to be cut because of a massive funding black hole. Yes, another one. 10 forces have written to the Home Secretary predicting that they will be more than £300 million short in the police funding settlement due to be announced later this week, forcing major reductions to frontline officers. Now, this comes just 1 week after the Prime Minister announced plans to put 13,000 additional officers, PCSOs and special constables on the beat across England and Wales. So who should we believe? The police chiefs or the Prime Minister? That's the big question. That's a big question. Let's now ask it to my guest, Dave McKelvey. I'm joined by Dave McKelvey. He's a former detective chief inspector at the Metropolitan Police. Dave, welcome to the show. So last week, 13,000 extra coppers. This week, thousands could go. More positions in the Kama Sutra. Hardly confidence-inspiring for you on the beat, is it?
Absolutely not. That's it's catastrophic potentially on policing the streets and keeping people safe. And basically, it appears that the government's got its sums wrong.
OK, and what would you say to the fact that Yvette Cooper, of course, historically, was very, very critical, for example, of Theresa May, when Theresa May got rid of 20,000 police officers, and that had a provable impact on crime reduction, a provable impact on crime going up, in fact. And yet, here we are again. Does it just constantly say to us that it's very easy to be in opposition, and when you get into power, suddenly things aren't quite so easy?
Absolutely. I mean, the problems with policing started with Theresa May's government, as you saw, with austerity, police stations closing. We have far, far fewer police stations now. The public have not got the access they had to police officers. You don't see police officers on the street anymore. I know the government intends or talking about increasing those numbers, but the reality and what they talk about are two very, very different things. And as you see, chief constables do not come out and say such things unless they're correct and it's true. And you've only got to look at, the Met Commissioner, who stated only a few weeks ago that they were looking at eye-watering cuts of £450 million, 2,300 police officers from the Met alone, 400 police staff. So someone's not telling the truth, effectively.
Dave McKelvey, briefly, if we could, if thousands of coppers lose their jobs, will crime go up?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. It's already on the rise. And the issue is arrests are at an all-time low, prosecutions are at an all-time low, and convictions are at an all-time low. And courts are backed up years and years and years, and people do not feel safe.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much for joining us on Farage tonight. And that's Dave McKelvey, former detective, chief inspector at the Metropolitan Police. Thank you very, very much. Now, Labour's controversial winter fuel payment cuts have been brutally mocked in a new parody song that's gunning to top the charts at Christmas to be the #1. It's a parody song of artist Mud's Lonely This Christmas. Let's take a listen.
It'll be freezing this Christmas while Keir Starmer's warm.
And that song called Freezing This Christmas, of course, is the play on Mud's classic Lonely This Christmas. It's by Sir Starmer and the Granny Harmers, and you can get it anywhere you download stuff, on Amazon, on Spotify, on Apple Music. It's on YouTube, and it's all over social media. Get stuck in. All the money, all the proceeds, I spoke to the originator, Chris Middleton, of this earlier on. All the money, all the proceeds go to Age UK to help keep pensioners warm this Christmas. So do the right thing. Get involved. Now, during Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we are hearing from church ministers across the country, and each day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season, and here's today's.
The GB News Advent Calendar, Day 9.
Hello, my name is Marjorie and I'm a minister in the north of England. Most of Britain is familiar with the fact that we have a king, a monarch. In 2022, at the age of 73, King Charles ascended to the throne. Jesus Christ is the only person to have actually been born a king, and at Christmas we celebrate his arrival. In Matthew's Gospel, chapter 21, Jesus himself, towards the end of his life, declares his kingship. Behold, your king has come, riding on a donkey, gentle. Yes, his power is completely different to our understanding of power in the world. He did not ascend to power, he simply is power. And what an example of power he gave to us. And that is why, 2,000 years later, many people across our world on a daily basis continue to turn to the person of Jesus Christ. He will not overpower you, but he will empower you to know God. And so we invite you individually to know the presence and the power of Jesus at this Christmas time. And may Great Britain, the United Kingdom, recognize, behold, your King is coming.
Beautiful stuff. And you can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by going to gbnews.com/Advent. And a Merry Christmas to you. Now, thank you very much. Stick with us, because a victim from the Rotherham sex abuse scandal reveals how she's been let down by police once again as they lost vital evidence in her case. It's the GB News exclusive from Charlie Peters. That's next here on Farage.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Clear skies overnight across the north will allow things to turn very frosty. Also some thick fog patches for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, staying largely dry, but quite cloudy. This weather front still generating quite a few showers across the far southeast, parts of Essex, even as far north as Suffolk. Those showers feeding in across Kent, the London area, into parts of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But away from the southeast, it is generally dry. Clearer skies here. That's where the fog is going to thicken up. Southwest Scotland, also western parts of Northern Ireland. That fog likely to be pretty dense and linger well into tomorrow. For England and Wales, we'll keep a lot of cloud. That'll keep the temperatures generally above freezing. But a wet start for parts of the southeast. Still a few showers coming in, particularly across parts of Kent, feeding all the way down across the Channel Islands too. But elsewhere, generally dry and cloudy for England and Wales. Some frost across Cumbria and certainly further north and west across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The frost widespread and some dense patches of fog. Parts of the central belt, particularly to the west, southwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. And where that fog forms through the night, it could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Quite a lot of cloud across the far north. Some drizzly rain heading its way towards Shetland. The showers in the southeast, well, still a few feeding in, but tending to fizzle out generally through the day. Some breaks in the cloud for North Wales, northwest England. Better sunshine possible here. Temperatures 6 or 7 Celsius. Still feeling cold with that wind coming in from the North Sea across the southeast. That's still there on Wednesday, as is the possibility of the odd shower across the south. Fog again for parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and again it could last all day. If it does, temperatures will struggle to get above freezing. But away from the fog, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland having another sunny day on Wednesday. Most of England and Wales staying fairly cloudy. Bye for now.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment. This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory. Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark Meets at My Take at 10. Democracy is a funny old thing. And we don't do boring. Not on my watch. I just won't have it. Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it. That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Now, a survivor from the Rotherham sex abuse scandal has claimed that she's been let down by South Yorkshire Police during an investigation into allegations of coercion, fraud and violent threats. Tina, which is not her real name, was exploited by gangs as a child, but has exclusively told GB News that she was re-groomed as an adult and that the police failed to support her. A national reporter Charlie Peters has this story and a warning. His report does contain discussions of grooming, threats of violence and sexual abuse, which some viewers may find upsetting.
A survivor of the Rotherham grooming gang scandal, Tina, not her real name, has carried the scars of her abuse for her whole life.
I was groomed and exploited from being around 11 to getting pregnant at 12.
What support did you get from the police?
Not much.
After she became pregnant at the hands of an abuser, the police finally made some arrests.
Only 2 of them agreed that they'd had sexual contact with me, and them 2 received cautions.
Cautions?
Yeah, at the time.
No investigation, no charging, just a caution?
Just a caution. So at that point, I just decided that I didn't want to go any further with anything. I just needed to focus on
being a mother,
being a mum,
raising a baby,
making sure my baby had a good life, and getting my education.
But in 2014, a government report exposed the extent of the abuse in the town, revealing that at least 1,400 children had been groomed and exploited by the gangs over 2 decades. Finally, people were talking about the scandal.
Did that give you a new sense of
relief?
Relief, but also maybe also purpose to find some justice for what happened to you?
So I was kind of upset, but relieved that I wasn't the only one and that there was other people that could help me prove what I'd been through.
Police eventually launched an investigation, and over 17 years after she was first exploited, Tina finally achieved some justice when 6 perpetrators were convicted.
Did that give you a sense of closure in some way?
I think it was just a sense of relief, because obviously Rotherham's not a big place, and bumping into your perpetrators regularly wasn't an easy thing.
South Yorkshire Police paid £50,000 in compensation to Tina after failing to protect her from child abuse gangs. But their failures continued into her adult life after she was targeted by a coercive abuser.
I spoke to a guy from Sheffield that is a local businessman. He also advised me that he could help me, put me on his books in his business to help me get a mortgage. He asked me for 14,000 to start off with. It were like continuous, like a couple of grand here, so it ended up being £32,000.
At what point did you realise that you weren't going to get that money back?
It was coming towards Christmas time, and I only had a certain amount left in my savings. And he asked me again for more. And I basically said, I can't, it's Christmas. And within me saying that, within a couple of days, it blocked me on everything. After 6 months, he unblocked me. He contacted me and said, can you come to my house? I want to talk to you, I'm very sorry. And when I got there, he basically said the same thing. And before I left, before I could leave, he wanted to have sex with me. So at that point, I had to do that.
In order to get out of the house?
Yeah. Yeah. And I also felt like if I'd have not done that, my money was just never going to come to me.
I'm so sorry, that must have been the most appalling experience.
Yeah, it wasn't nice. And that continued for, on and off for 3 years. And obviously, it's £32,000. I need to go, and I have to have sex with him again before I leave. I didn't think that I could go to the police.
Because they let you down in the first place?
They've let me down too much in my life.
Caught in a coercive trap with all of her savings at stake, Tina started to seriously fear for her safety.
I already knew that he had guns. He told me that he was a licensed firearm holder. He told me during stories of us having conversation and whatever that he were a soldier, and that he'd shot and killed people. He told me that he'd shot him in the head. Told me some graphic stories of him being a soldier and having to kill people.
Did he seem proud of the fact that he'd been violent in the past and he killed?
100% proud. He boasted about it. Do
you think he wanted to scare you with that information?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Traumatic. And it was very... Now I can look back and see that it was very similar to what I went through as a child, and forced to have sex to keep some freedom. I decided to record a video when I've started attending, after the gun incident. I decided I needed to record it on my phone for evidence in future, in case he did do anything to me. And I recorded him speaking and talking about the money and how he planned to pay me back. You can also hear him threatening me and my children and saying that he would shoot up my house if it wasn't for my kids living there.
The man's voice has been disguised.
Them come over there and bust their ass. Let's come shoot your house up. But you know what's stopping me from shooting your house up? Yeah, baby, I wouldn't do that. You f***ing think I don't know where you live? I'm gonna ask you one question. You think I don't know where you live, don't you? You make a wrong mistake, man.
It were traumatic, scary, and having to still go to his house to talk to him about the money were hard. But I just did it, and I had to, because I knew South Yorkshire Police would not do anything.
It's a great piece of journalism, Charlie Peters. So many words leap to mind, but the one that I think Tina's been utterly betrayed.
Yes, that is the word. And I've heard that recording, that voice recording, hundreds of times now since I first started looking into this case. And it still gives me that sense of fear every time I hear it, because you can hear the menace in that voice, even as we've disguised it to protect the identity of both people on that recording. Something that we haven't included also is a claim by Tina that on one occasion he pulled a firearm from behind his sofa and put it to her head and said that he could end her life whenever he wanted to. She was caught in that appalling coercive trap, but because of the experience she'd had with South Yorkshire Police as a child, she did not report it at the time.
It's incredible stuff. And coming up next, we've got part 2 of Charlie's investigation, where we will learn more about South Yorkshire's response to Tina's horrific ordeal. Stick around, it's absolutely fantastic journalism. Well done, Charlie Peters, for shining a light on a terminally tough topic. But thank you very much. See you after the break.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
My next guest knew George Carman rather intimately. Indeed, he immediately asked her for her hand in marriage when they first met. Karen Phillips knew Carman from 1986 and was a close friend until his death in 2001. Karen has used court transcripts and personal documents to construct her new book, Get Carman. There it is. And here you are. Karen, thank you very much indeed. So you knew him very well, and actually he began to write a little bit of an autobiography just in the weeks before his death. And from those pages, I was struck by the amount of uncertainty that there was about the man. This man who was so confident in court, who charmed juries so famously, but in some ways felt that he was an actor, in some ways felt that he was fighting back nerves and uncertainties. Is that true?
I think he was quite worried about every case. It was much more that he was concerned for the client. He always wanted to do his best. He worked so hard to win a case, not really for his personal satisfaction, but because he didn't want to let people down.
His success rate was extraordinary, and, you know, I'll choose my words carefully here, but shall we say that many people were surprised at the time that Jeremy Thorpe was found not guilty. It was astonishing in the case of Jonathan Aitken, for example, that the principal charge against him, which was that he'd been corrupt in arms dealings, I don't think that was ever actually reached during the court. It seems even more surprising today that people who were employed by Mohammed Fayed were believed in the case of Neil Hamilton. Do you know what I'm saying? I mean, his results are extraordinary.
GB News, the People's Channel. Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel. Welcome back to Farage with me, Martin Daubney. Before the break, we heard about how Tina, and that's not her real name, made secret recordings of a businessman that she alleges threatened her with a firearm and sexually abused her after fraudulently taking £32,000 from her. A survivor of the Rotherham grooming gang scandal, she told our national reporter Charlie Peters that she approached the police with hesitation after they'd failed her as a child. And a warning, this report contains discussion of grooming, threats of violence and sexual abuse, which some viewers may find upsetting.
So Sheffield CID took over the case, and I never actually met them, anyone from there. I only received calls from investigating officer. She basically didn't believe me. She was treating me like a liar.
Did it feel like the same experience you had when you were 12 years old, 2 decades later?
Yeah.
The South Yorkshire Police were not believing you as you were enduring appalling sexual abuse.
Yeah.
Was that re-traumatising, having that experience again, even after the J report, even after all those lessons meant to have been learnt? Here you are reporting coercive abuse, rape, exploitation, financial loss, and they just didn't believe you all over again.
Yeah. And threats to kill.
Threats to your life and your children's life.
And my children's lives. And they didn't prioritise what I was saying. It just felt like they didn't care.
The businessman was eventually arrested and police recovered a replica firearm, but he was released without charge. Weeks later, officers finally spoke to Tina.
So I then hears back from the investigating officer saying that he'd basically told them that I'd gifted him money and that he'd had no sexual contact with me. How could he possibly deny it in an interview? She just said, we can't prove we can't prove that. There's no proof.
Even though she had video evidence of the abuse, South Yorkshire Police failed to progress the investigation. Months later, they sent Tina a letter to say that they dropped the case entirely.
I was angry, upset, angry. But for some reason, I felt like I had a bit of fight in me for it. Because I thought, I can't sit back and let this happen again. I can't let them just chuck me down and do this on my own again.
It was bad enough when you were 12.
It were horrendous.
With the support of a close friend, Tina asked for all of the evidence that was assessed before they dropped the investigation.
We met. She told me what had happened. I was totally horrified that this could have happened to her yet again. And I then asked South Yorkshire Police for all the evidence that used to decide not to proceed. And it took 6 months and an awful lot of effort for them to provide that evidence.
But not all of the evidence was provided. Key footage Tina had submitted was missing.
They lost things when I was 12, and they've lost things now. And the fact that it was the key piece of evidence of him threatening to kill me and threatening my children's lives. And also discussing the money that he denied. He said that I'd gifted him. And you can clearly hear him discussing how he's going to repay me.
It was on an encrypted CD, and when we looked at it and there was only one video, we couldn't believe it. We were just so shocked that a critical piece of evidence was missing. They immediately agreed to what's called a victim's right to review, which is we'll start again and we'll do it again. And that took a year. And at the end of it, they said exactly the same thing. Not enough evidence, we're not proceeding.
How does it feel for you, supporting her through this process, knowing that over 20 years ago, she was abused by gangs of men, had to suffer all that abuse, is now being abused by a different man, exploiting what she was able to retrieve from that appalling experience?
It's indescribably horrible, but she is a remarkable person. She is such a strong person. It's actually an honour and a privilege for me to be able to walk this path with her. It really is, but lots of people will be suffering this and she wants to stand up for them, and I just think that's remarkable.
South Yorkshire Police Detective Superintendent James Axe, head of professional standards, said it's clear that Tina has suffered a horrendous ordeal which will undoubtedly have a profound impact on her for the rest of her life. An internal professional standards process is underway in relation to aspects of the handling of this case. In addition, a criminal investigation into the fraud allegations remains live. The investigation is being reviewed holistically to ensure all of the wider matters raised are taken into consideration and assessed against a criminal threshold. While these investigations remain ongoing, we are unable to comment any further. We continue to offer Tina support and safeguarding advice and provide updates on the matters she has raised when possible as this work continues.
I want everybody that's made mistakes to admit that they've made mistakes, because you can't start learning if you haven't made mistakes. I want the Chief Constable to sit down and give her a personal apology.
And also to launch a proper investigation.
I want this crook to be locked up. I want him to be locked up and taken out of society.
I want a right and just investigation and an apology, because I shouldn't be having to do all these things to get the correct outcome.
You should want to feel safe.
Yeah, I just want to feel safe. I just want my life to go back to how it was. Feeling comfortable, feeling safe. I don't want to walk out of my house feeling like I'm having to watch my back again. I've done that before. I did it for years. And I don't want to have to go back to that.
Very powerful piece of journalism there, Charlie Peters. Well done you. I'm close to tears just listening to that. When you look at somebody who's been through so many traumas, just to be utterly failed by the entire establishment, what does justice look like? How can this get sorted out?
Well, first and foremost, I want to pay tribute to Tina's resilience and her moral courage. Not only just for enduring, what she has her whole life and to keep fighting for that justice, but also her bravery in coming forward to GB News and letting us tell her story. In doing so, I think we've achieved a breakthrough, because as I understand it now, South Yorkshire Police is considering and has reopened a full investigation into all of the allegations made against this businessman. A man we're not naming at this stage, but the evidence against him, I believe, is extremely compelling. We've played out some of it for you tonight. I've seen plenty more. And I also want to touch on some of the police failures that we've seen as well, some of which we've shown. I've seen case notes from the various reviews that have been conducted at the orders of Tina and her friend, which in some cases a detective says the victim has clearly lied and undermined the case. The victim has misled us in terms of what the money was for. Several of these payments, the first one, £14,000, that can't be just a gift or a trip or something that you give to someone. That is an investment that she made because she was told
that doing so would get her a mortgage, and that's where she tumbled into this appalling experience of coercion, violence and sexual abuse. All of that violence she is desperate to escape from and feel secure, but due to those policing failures, losing that evidence, not believing her, even after they neglected her when she was a child, that has put her in this situation. So I'll come back to your question, Martin. What does justice look like? Justice for Tina looks like the police admitting they have failed in several cases here. We've heard in that statement from the DSI that professional standards are looking into this. Justice also would see this man arrested and an investigation being launched there. That is her perspective. That is the perspective of her friend who has supported her. That's very clear, and I think lots of our viewers will be hoping to see that happening next as this story develops.
Charlie Peters, first of all, I want to shake you by the hand. It's an astonishing piece of journalism, and I'm still choked by it. I've seen it a couple of times now. It really, really gets to me. But, you know, well done, and well done to her, to Tina.
Absolutely.
For having the conviction, the courage to stand up. It can't be difficult, can't be easy, beg your pardon, having been failed so many times. But brilliant. I'm proud to work on a channel that's got journalists like you doing stuff like that. I mean it. Thank you.
Thanks, Martin.
OK, now coming up at State of the Nation, and I'm joined by Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg in the studio. Sir Jacob, what's on your menu this evening?
Well, first of all, we're going to be talking about the Paris Accord and the fear that the temperature's gone up by the 2.7 degrees Fahrenheit, to use proper measures that they said it mustn't do, and yet the world's still going. We all still seem to be alive. We hadn't been fried alive, as they were all predicting. So does any of it matter? That's our opening. And we're also going to be talking about Syria, but not about the news, which is being covered very broadly, but Monsignor Nazar Ali, the former Bishop of Rochester, is coming in to talk about some of the Christians in Syria and what's been happening to them and what the risks are to them. So we'll be covering a wide range of subjects this evening.
Do you think it's the right thing to do, as Germany are intimating, to start returning Syrian refugees from Germany to Syria, should the United Kingdom go down the same route? 17,000 Syrians in the country, the war is over.
Well, it completely changes the basis of their asylum status, doesn't it? That if Syria is now a country that is going to be safe, and I think that's still an if, I don't think you can be certain about that, then yes, of course, people should be returned. But the people who are taking over may not be the most savoury people in the world to start with. So you've got to be quite careful. I think sending them back tomorrow, if they're genuine refugees, and I think people who've come from Syria are likely to be, then you need to wait a little bit. But your general principle should be people go back to their home country.
Excellent stuff. Thank you very much. That's Jacob Rees-Mogg. State of the Nation is next. And thanks again to Charlie Peters for that fantastic piece of journalism. Catch it online. If you missed it, tell your mates, share it. Just get it out there. We have to get justice for Tina. OK, State of the Nation is next with Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg. First, though, here's your weather with Alex Deakin.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Evening. Welcome to your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Clear skies overnight across the north will allow things to turn very frosty. Also some thick fog patches for parts of Scotland and Northern Ireland. Further south, staying largely dry but quite cloudy. This weather front still generating quite a few showers across the far southeast, parts of Essex, even as far north as Suffolk. Those showers feeding in across Kent, the London area, into parts of Hampshire and the Isle of Wight. But away from the southeast, it is generally dry. Clearer skies here. That's where the fog is going to thicken up. Southwest Scotland, also western parts of Northern Ireland. That fog likely to be pretty dense and linger well into tomorrow. For England and Wales, we'll keep a lot of cloud. That'll keep the temperatures generally above freezing. But a wet start for parts of the southeast. Still a few showers coming in, particularly across parts of Kent, feeding all the way down across the Channel Islands too. But elsewhere, generally dry and cloudy for England and Wales. Some frost across Cumbria and certainly further north and west across Scotland and Northern Ireland. The frost widespread and some dense patches of fog. Parts of the central belt, particularly to the west, southwest Scotland and parts of Northern Ireland. And where that fog forms through the night, it could be very slow to clear tomorrow. Quite a lot of cloud across the far north. Some drizzly rain heading its way towards Shetland. The showers in the southeast, well, still a few feeding in, but tending to fizzle out generally through the day. Some breaks in the cloud for North Wales, northwest England. Bit of sunshine possible here. Temperature 6 or 7 Celsius. Still feeling cold with that wind coming in from the North Sea across the southeast. That's still there on Wednesday, as is the possibility of the odd shower across the south. Fog again for parts of southern Scotland and Northern Ireland, and again it could last all day. If it does, temperatures will struggle to get above freezing, but away from the fog, much of Scotland, Northern Ireland having another sunny day on Wednesday. Most of England and Wales staying fairly cloudy. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting a call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock. That is absolutely fantastic.
Thank you.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Welcome to State of the Nation, a daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight.